All right, we are recording. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to let some more people in here. Where did they go? There they are. All right, so I'll kind of slowly ease into it here. If at any point you have issues seeing my slides, let me know. I think they're up there now, but I want to start this off. First, I'll introduce myself. My name is Alli Rippy. I am the Employer Relationship Manager for Code U. So most of the time I work on the employer side of things once you start looking for a job. And sorry, I'm still admitting people here. I came up with this presentation because I'm also a job seeker myself, and I thought it would be really useful for you all. But I want to give that disclaimer that I am not I came up with this just from my own experience. So it's a work in progress. If you want to talk to me at any point about things that you think I should add, things that should be changed or, updated, please let me know. I'm always open to feedback on stuff like this, especially. So, but I hope that what I've started with can be a useful tool for you all, whether you're looking for your first tech job or you're just a victim of the market and don't have a job right now looking for anything. So let's get started. So, quick overview. If you scan that QR code on the screen, it'll take you to a companion document that you can use both during the call as well as afterwards. There's some prompts in there that you can copy and paste into um, the whatever model you use. And I'm gonna also just stick that link in the chat really quickly. Um, let's see, just so that if people join a little bit later, they'll still be able to access that. So, overview of our presentation today. Basically, we're going to look at best practices, so do's and don'ts, finding the right roles, how to find positions with AI, prompt engineering for application materials, so resumes, cover letters, and LinkedIn, and then finally interview prep and Q&A. So, how to use AI in all those aspects of your search. And I'm sorry if I pause; it's because I'm still admitting people. So, kind of back, why did I make this presentation? Like you all know, Code U is closing at the end of the summer, pretty much. So, I'm a job seeker as well. Anything you can do that I can do. I have an almost 19-month-old daughter, so anything that I can do to make my search more efficient is really helpful to me. Number two, companies are noticing this. So, especially in tech, you will see people and companies posting specifications about using AI in your application. So, it may say, we understand that you may utilize artificial intelligence while you're completing this application, and then it'll say what they think about that. Whether we ask that you use it, I've seen people job applications say we ask that you use it in a certain way, or if there's certain rules that they want you to follow. And I've seen applications or companies say, please do not use AI when you're filling out this application, which I think, if you have a resume that's already created that you use AI to like refine, that's one thing. So, I'll just use your judgment and follow those best practices if they are given to you by the company. So I also want you all to be able to frame AI as a skill, not a hack. So, a lot of people associate AI with like trash posting on the internet to get views or likes or whatever, and generating content that just is garbage. I don't want I want you all to use the positive piece of AI to help you, and also to be able to say, like, hey, look, I know how to use these tools to be more efficient, which hopefully you all are already dabbling with to begin with. But especially if you're looking for that entry level tech job, AI should be a tool and not a hack. So um, that's my goal here. So the do's for using AI. So you're going to want to enhance, not replace the work that you're doing. So use past resumes and cover letters to feed into your model so that it has something to enhance and that has a human basis. You'll want to consistently use those bases. It's not even a word. The basis, the human basis to create new content rather than starting from an AI generated starting point. Um, and because otherwise it becomes kind of crappy and deformed over time. Number two, tailoring every application. I would say that this is the thing in my job search that AI has helped me actually do the most, because before the last time I was job seeking, I did not use AI. It was a few years ago. And it's just one of those things that it takes so much time to do a lot of the time. And sometimes you end up just not doing it as much as you should. So you can provide AI with a job description and ask it to write you a cover letter based on the role you're applying for, and use your existing resume as a basis. You can ask it to draft or rewrite a part, like existing parts of your resume, like your skills section and the job description section, like the bullet points under jobs, to kind of better highlight things that will stand out for that particular role you're applying for. Um, Number three, using it to save time, not skip thinking. So, um, you don't want to become totally, I don't want to become totally dependent on AI for anything. Um, and be sure you're always thinking critically about like what you're applying for and what's being outlined in your application materials, because otherwise you may just totally miss something. Like if you're not reading stuff out loud, if you're not showing it to somebody else to proofread, you may just totally miss something that just is AI slop that got left in your copy. So number four, use it for research. So I love to use AI to ask it to do some background research on the company or the organization that you're applying to, and incorporate that finding into your materials that's drafting. So your cover letter, and then your interview prep if you get to that stage. But this is where you want to start being really careful, because AI can make mistakes, as it always tells you, and it reminds you. It can pull, say you're applying to a company that has a relatively common name, or it shares a name with a completely different, like, global company, or vice versa. It can just pull stuff from that website, and hopefully you would notice if it was just a completely unrelated organization or company that's not at all what the one you're applying to. But it can also hallucinate. So just be sure that you're not, you know, doing that, because and check sources, because it generally includes embedded sources when it gives you research and things like that. So the don'ts for using AI. Don't spray and pray. Just like job searching before AI, mindlessly applying to as many roles as possible isn't going to get you very far. I can't say I've never just gone on LinkedIn and like applied to 30 quick applies just because I was fed up, but I can say that that's never gotten me a job. So same thing with AI. They make all these tools now that I've seen advertised where you put your information in and it goes and applies to jobs for you. I don't know if it costs money or whatever. Regardless, I don't recommend it. If somebody's had success with it, then that's great, but uh, I don't recommend it. You can use AI in each different step of your application process and your search, but don't use it for the entire process to just do it all yourself. Um, Number two, don't misrepresent yourself. So kind of like what I was saying about it hallucinating about companies, it can also hallucinate about you. So don't let AI fabricate anything about you. This is definitely something that can happen, especially if you use it to practice for interviews where situational questions are expected. So I've had a model, like when I entered in potential questions, it just like totally made up a scenario for me that just didn't ever happen. And I was like, why would you do that? Um, and so just be careful with stuff like that. So don't lie. I've also had it like look at my LinkedIn and say, like, you won this like 50 under 40 Louisville award because I had reshared someone's post who did win it and I didn't. I guess I'm just not that cool, obviously. But it thought that I had announced that I had won it and so just stuff like that, be careful because it's dumb. So excuse me. Um, Next, don't sound like a bot. So most of us by this point can see when something sounds overly jargony, lots of M dashes, buzzwords. Recruiters, especially in tech, will be able to spot this from a mile away. There are definitely ways to avoid this. You can use specific prompts and AI checkers that we'll talk about later. So, when you're in doubt, read it out loud, and you don't want to sound like a freak, and you'll hear it if you read it out loud and you sound crazy. Next, don't share sensitive information. This is a big one for me. This may be more like personal opinion, but you should always treat AI like your professional acquaintance that you just met. You don't need to give it any information other than what's on your resume. I personally wouldn't even give it my address, although I'm sure those companies know it in some way or another. The reality about AI is that while it's a bot you're talking to, real people who work for these companies, these companies have financial objectives and they can and will see your data as they see or use their data as they see fit. So review the privacy agreements of the models you use and just keep that in mind. And if you're lonely, come to IT happy hour or, talk to somebody in Slack. I'm so sorry. I'm getting over a cold. Um, So jumping into LinkedIn profile optimization, this is the easiest thing that you can start working on now, even if you're still in class. So please ask, you can use LinkedIn use AI and ask it for help writing different parts of your LinkedIn profile. So the about section and the summary. It should be able to give you a good overview of who you are, but you want to keep it general enough that you'll still be considered for a variety of positions. So for me, for example, I've worked in nonprofits. I'm open to being a recruiter again. I used to be a recruiter for a tech company. I'm, open to a lot of different roles and I'm actively job seeking. So I try to use AI in this instance to keep that section of my profile pretty general. So you don't want to be like, I'm a junior developer that is only interested in working at a game company or something like that. So, keep it open. Same deal with your headline and your skills and keywords. If there is a role though that you're really going for and you're certain that the recruiter is going to look at your profile, you can always tailor it a little bit. Go in there and tailor a little bit more towards that role while you're being considered for it. But other than that, I would not really change it too much. This is kind of one of those things that once you get it up and running, you can occasionally add skills and tweak it a little bit, but you shouldn't have to revisit your LinkedIn super often. So before you apply, work on your LinkedIn. That's going to be working for you 24/7. Find your people. So you can definitely use AI to help you find events, online communities, and like Slack channels and things like that, all worth joining. I know not all of you are based in like the Louisville or like Cincinnati areas where there's a lot of networking going on. But there's a ton of like online webinars and things like that that would be both informative to you all and you might meet people there. So keep in mind, you can always use AI if you have some spare time in a week to try and find some stuff worth attending. So searching smarter, job boards are just one tool. So there's also a lot of ways you can kind of get off of LinkedIn and Indeed to find roles like directly on Google. I should have in the companion document, there should be a prompt that you can type directly into your Google Chrome search bar to find jobs just via searching the applicant tracking systems directly. So I've also given that directive to AI in the past, and it's been able to use that formula to find roles for me. So, um, the front end, haha, no pun intended, of your job search is just as important as your application materials. So, a nice LinkedIn profile, an efficient search strategy, those things can get you in front of opportunities before you even write a cover letter, and you can be some of the first in the first applicants for a lot of these jobs if you're efficient about it. So that's key as well. Hmm. Nope, did I go back instead of forward? Yes, I did. So prompt engineering for resumes. Um, Ask AI for feedback as if it were a hiring manager from a specific company. If you know who the hiring manager is, you can even, input their LinkedIn profile, and the model will respond with the person's background in mind. Always start with a resume you made from scratch, not an AI generated one. So, in the companion document is an example tech resume that you can pull if you haven't already started working on your resume. um, Go ahead and use that template. You can make a copy of it and go from there. So you always want to use that basis and then go from there. I typically keep a few different versions of my resume depending on what I'm applying for. So for like mission driven nonprofit roles that I apply for, I have a version of my resume for that. For you know, more corporate, like sales type roles that I'm also interested in, I have a resume for that. So you can keep a couple different versions and go from there. Um, Typically, the AI will tell you with your job description, pasting that in, if you are a good match to the job or if there are some gaps. If there are gaps, you can ask it to elaborate on those and help you address them, which brings me to my next point. Um, if you have a summary on your resume, you can ask it to tailor this to the job description. Again, you should have a baseline summary that's not written by AI that you can input to help it learn your voice. Always run bodies of text like this through AI checkers. Same thing with bullet points. AI tends to make all of these super jargony. So be sure to read them out loud and run them through checkers, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about AI checkers in a second. Or just, like I said, read them out loud and use common sense. Um, Go over it many times. So if you've made a significant amount of changes, it's always good to have a friend look it over for you so you can catch any little details you could be missing. If you don't have somebody else with you at the moment to look over it, just read it out loud, even little bullet points. That'll help. Okay. So prompt engineering for cover letters. Pretty similar. You want to start with a cover letter that's written entirely by you. Do this a couple times based on different roles and use it always as a basis to give the AI your voice. You'll also provide the job description each time, as well as the resume. So you'll want to finish your resume, you get your resume that you're using to apply, and give it the resume that you're using to apply, and make sure that it bases the cover letter off of that, so that if it makes any references to the resume in the cover letter, it's accurate. Um, Ask it to use the materials you've attached to draft a cover letter that reflects your experience and how you're suited for the job description. So read the full description for yourself. I've had it write cover letters for me where it just totally did not hit on things that when I read the job description, I was like, that seems like it's really important. So make sure you're still reading the job description yourself. You can go back and say, actually, I want you to focus more on this part of the job description and how it relates to this experience of mine or whatever. So refining, like I said, you can do a lot of engineering to force it to sound more like you. You can ask it to shift focus. It'll even say, do you want me to make it shorter or make it more casual, or what do you want it to do? And so you can ask it to pull your voice from a former cover letter. You can tell it to focus on a certain experience that it maybe didn't know about. You can tell it about, what you did at work that is relevant. You can remove something it said that sounded weird, shorten the length, anything you want to do. Number 4, read it out loud. And again and again and again, have another human look at it and read it again. Interview prep. So this is a good one. Uh, First, you're going to want to develop an interview preparation document, is what I typically do. So, I'm so sorry. Typically, if you ask AI to make you a document, it'll include all of these things. But if it's ever missing a piece that you really wanted to see, you can add that in. So, you'll want to ask it for company research, interviewer research if you know who's interviewing you, context of the interview. So whether this is a phone screen, like a really casual phone screen with a recruiter, a second round panel with, a group of people on the team, or like a final with the manager of the team or the president of the company or whatever, give it that context. And then you can also ask it to develop a little elevator pitch for you. So, if they start the interview, as many do, with tell me about yourself, you want to have something prepared so you're not caught off guard by that question. And then you can also ask it to make a list of bullet points that you definitely want to hit that are definitely relevant to this job. And you can reference those. The nice part about if it's a remote interview is you can have that pulled up on your screen and reference it in your interview, which is the extent to which you should be using AI in your interviews, by the way. So a lot of the time, it'll give you like I've had mine give me like 5 pages of content. And I'm like, okay, I do not need to know like the name of the daughter of the person who founded this company 200 years ago. Like, I don't need to know that. So once it gives you the bigger document, you're going to want to parse it down and really like highlight stuff that you're going to definitely use. Do your own research and check for inaccuracies or false info, and make sure things written for you don't sound jargon filled and AI generated. You can rework those things or just make it down to bullet points so you make sure that you hit them and you sound natural otherwise. Take the extra filler out of the documents that you don't think you'll use, especially if it's just a phone screen or like a first round, so that you can easily parse through the document during the interview if you need to. That is, if you are interviewing remotely, which is nice to be able to do, because you want to focus on those like key points. Practicing a Q&A. So definitely go over your elevator speech out loud. It seems silly, but I do it before every job interview, even though I feel dumb just talking to myself in a room. Bullet points to make sure that you mention key points about your background. Like I said already, you can typically get an idea of possible questions they might ask from AI, like if it has the job description and all that stuff. But don't overstress it. I mean, I'm the type of, if you haven't interviewed in a long time, I would say just Google some, situational questions and practice like 5 to 10 of those one day, and maybe do that for the next one, kind of as a warm up. But I wouldn't overstress it once you're comfortable interviewing again. I wouldn't overstress it because you want to focus more on your experience, because statistically, there is very small chance that the questions you practice are going to be the questions that they ask. So don't hyper focus in on this. Once you're comfortable talking and kind of answering questions on the fly, don't hyper focus on this part of it. And then lastly, having AI help you come up with relevant questions and follow-ups. As part of the guide, the model will likely go ahead and prepare some decent questions for you. But you can also ask it to, in addition to these questions, to prepare some follow-up messages to the interviewers, or, something like that that would be thoughtful and kind of hit on your experience to kind of, if someone has a really long day of interviews, that follow-up email can be kind of key to say, hey, like, remember me? I'm the one that is super qualified for this job. So using AI to help you with that is always an option. So I've hit on this constantly throughout the presentation, but keep it human. So this is designed for efficiency, not to replace you. So like in the chat on Slack, where I discovered people who, when I was researching for this presentation, people who are literally live using AI models in interviews, which is so cringe, and it's going to be so obvious that you're doing that. So please, please, please don't. The most you should ever have pulled up if you have like a remote interview that you're doing is your document that you built along, I mean, with help of AI that you built and refined. And that's the most you should ever have pulled up is those notes. Don't enter questions that they ask in AI to generate, just don't. Just be yourself, answer questions. In terms of preparation, I mentioned AI detection software. I typically use GPT-0. There's also Digital Magic Wand. Um, and I think Grammarly even has one now. Most of them are free. They have like a daily limit of like 15,000 characters or words or something like that, like GPT-0 does. So you can definitely use those. M dashes. So as we all know, M dashes are like the first sign of AI these days. I think maybe that's kind of dialing back a little bit. Like, maybe it's not, maybe we're realizing that humans do sometimes use AI, M dashes as well. But for some reason, nobody can make AI stop using M dashes. So OpenAI users have shared thread after thread of like failed attempts to prompt M dashes away. And RLHF, which is like the process that companies use to fine tune model behavior, should theoretically be able to penalize any repetitive pattern or overused pattern, and a few rounds of people being like, stop doing that, and the habit should just end, but it doesn't. So nobody really has a convincing explanation why it uses M dashes so much, or more importantly, why it can't be. Yes, thank you, Lisa. Or you can yell at your chatbot and say, no freaking M dashes. And anyway, I just think that this part's funny where it's just like they've literally tried to teach it to not use so many M dashes and it's not working. It's committed to the bit of using M dashes. So you can use them as they see fit, but like I said, keep in mind that even if you wrote a paragraph all by yourself, those M dashes have become a telltale sign of that. And then overused words and phrases. So similar to the this is all in the companion document, by the way, so I don't have to click around and show you these things. But similar to the M dashes, there are lots of phrases and words that it uses a lot that sounds super jargony. I linked in the companion document, like I said, a list of these that someone put together, James Welch at Embryo List put together. And you can always I've literally copy and pasted that list, even though it's really long, into a model and been like, don't use any of these, haha. And no M dashes. So you can do stuff like that to help it sound more or more human. But the easiest thing to do is just basically rewrite any like long paragraphs of text, rewrite it yourself and just do that. Get a thesaurus out. And then lastly, continue research. So just make sure that even this list that, James Welch wrote at Embryo, like that was written in this time last year in 2025. So make sure you're always doing your own research on stuff like that. I'm sure his list is probably a little bit outdated already, just because AI is like in theory always learning and changing. So there's lots of trends to keep up with, things like that. And that is going to be it. So I'd love to answer any questions that you all may have. If you all just want to have a conversation starter, we have the 30 minutes slotted for this presentation. So we have plenty of time to chat about it, but we don't have to use all that time. But I hoped there would at least be a few questions. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here. I'm going to check the chat and see if I missed anything. Yeah, so running ball man, I don't know who you are. I'm sorry. Um, hello.
Sorry, I'm Justin. I guess I was logged in on my YouTube account here.
That's fine. Um, I've also done that. So like, I've told AI in the past that done things like planned industry night, the event that we have here. I plan that every year. So, and the nice part about the memory is that it'll use that info, in if I apply for a job in the future and it thinks that's relevant, it'll remember that I did that and it'll include it. So, um, yeah, you can always share important, scenarios like that you think would be relevant either in a cover letter or in an interview, and it'll typically remember. So I'm curious to what does everybody use? Does everybody have a preference of Claude or ChatGPT? You can put it in the chat if you don't want to come off mute.
I'm Claude.
Yeah,
Claude
same.
or Gemini.
Myself.
Yeah, I typically use Claude until I run out of days or run out of time. I've never
Yeah, I
used
got
Claude.
whatever one doesn't make me pay for it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I have
I
found though
literally
that
am just using
Gemini.
Claude because it's prettier.
I have found though that Gemini, you get um, a longer period of time of talking to it or whatever.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I've had trouble kind of registering the way by which it judges, like, because it's like if you upload a bunch of things, then I guess that takes up more space, and then it's like you can't talk again for until 2 p.m. or whatever. So
Yeah.
anyway, well, I hope this was helpful to you guys. You have the companion document. Oh, Lisa, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to ask about well, or uh, I guess mention that like context windows, like keeping the conversation going for too long or uploading too many documents or something,
Mhm.
will basically confuse the AI and increase the risk of hallucinations, as far as from what I understand.
Okay.
So it's better to so AI tends to perform better in like shorter sessions,
Okay.
with kind of with a relatively clean context.
Yeah, I typically end up.
Anyway.
Yeah, I typically end up starting new chats. You mean like you want it to erase everything you've done in the past, or starting like just a new chat rather than going back to an old chat?
Starting a new chat, but I prefer my chats not to like overlap with each other, because I also
Yeah.
like and like especially if you're doing like hypothetical scenarios, and then it can get them confused or something.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I typically when I'm applying for a new job, I typically um start a new chat, and then if I get an interview for that job, I go back into that chat just to say, "Hey, I got an interview for this job," because it already has the JD in there typically. But other than that, I try and start a new one rather than just having it continuous. But it is nice because it remembers if I'm like, "Hey, I want to write a new LinkedIn about me," or whatever, it knows all the different jobs I've applied for. It knows all those things. Or I've done the thing where I try and train it to uh, search for jobs for me. And I it's nice because it knows the types of jobs that I really am interested in, because I've sent it probably 20, 30, 40 jobs at this point. And so it knows what to pull and like what keywords to use and stuff like that. That's something that I didn't hit on a whole lot just because I didn't have a whole lot of success. Pretty much the only thing I've discovered it can pull from is Indeed, which I am not a huge fan of Indeed. I've definitely applied to some stuff, but it can do the thing. So in the companion document, I'll share my screen one more time. Um, so in the companion document, I believe I included, oh, you know what? I didn't include it. I'll enter it in now. But there's this formula that I've sent out. I've posted it on my LinkedIn and things like that in the past. And you can basically ask it to use this formula for, I'm just going to plop it right down here. Finding jobs directly on Google. So I posted this on LinkedIn before, but basically you go directly into your search bar, and you type, site greenhouse.io, my workday jobs, those are all different applicant tracking systems. And then you type in your keywords. So Python and remote. For me, I type in things like nonprofit and remote or partnerships and remote. Typically, this is better. I am looking for jobs in Louisville as well, but I typically use this when I'm looking for remote jobs just because I'm not going to type in Louisville. Like the chances are just pretty small that it would be something worth applying for. Anyway, so I did give AI this exact file, this picture, and I was like, hey, please use this to help me find some jobs. So between that and Indeed, typically it'll give me a couple options. It also has been able to search certain job boards for me. Like it can search a job board that I use relatively often called Idealist, which is I use it for posting jobs for you all too, because they do have like data jobs and stuff. But it's focused on nonprofits. So for whatever reason, it can, AI, there's no blockers. So AI can actually search it, but AI doesn't seem to be able to like search LinkedIn for jobs. So, cause I guess there's a login wall. So, yeah, if anybody has more success actually finding job postings using a model, definitely let me know because I'd love to add that info into the presentation. So anyway, I hope this was helpful for you guys. Anybody else have questions or anything they want to talk about? Justin, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I think part of it with LinkedIn is it's got an API is so specialized that they only want companies or employers being able to use the API
Yeah.
key.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, in a way, that's a good thing. So, I mean, there was another website that I was trying to get it to look at for me too, that I ran into the same issue where it was just like, I can't even, I think it was like Instagram or something. It was like, I can't look at Instagram because I'm not logged in. So, yeah, just things like that. It just won't be able to bypass. Cool. Any other questions or?
Hi, I joined from my phone, so I'm not seeing like any hand raising button, so I just interrupt in between. Uh, my name is Archana. I'm also looking for some entry level data analyst job.
Sure.
My question is not like very much like IT related, but yeah, like while applying for this job and waiting for like their reply, what time period do you think like would be the best for the follow up to them, not looking like too much like desperate or not looking like okay you're just like too much clingy? So what do you
I
think like?
typically, if it's a job that I really want, so do you mean before, like before you
If
even hear anything at all?
yeah,
Okay. I would say honestly within if it kind of depends on the context. So, if you applied on LinkedIn and it's just like a mess, like and the person's probably getting a bajillion applications, I'm the person that will go to the hiring manager on LinkedIn and message them and be like, "Hey, I just applied for this." Or I will even apply for something directly on a website and then go find somebody that works at the company on LinkedIn and tell them that I applied for it. Just because with remote roles, and I'll even say that I'm like, I know with remote roles, it's likely for these applications to get lost. And, I just wanted to reach out and, let you know that I applied. So that's not really a follow up, but sometimes if it's a job that I really want, I will go out of my way to do that. In terms of just following up, like if you applied directly to someone via email, if they confirmed a receipt of your application and like they definitely got it, I would say a week. If you emailed in an application and you haven't heard anything at all, less time just to make sure it was refused or that it was received. So like, maybe 3 to 5 days. And then in terms of jobs where there's jobs where you apply and everything you've gotten communicated with is no reply, so I don't have any advice for that. You can do the LinkedIn stalking thing that I do and try and find somebody that might be involved in the hiring process. At that point I think all bets are off. Like either do it the day of and say, hey, I just applied for this, or do it 3 days later and I applied for this a couple days ago. It just kind of depends on the context.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it feels like so hard to keep yourself motivated. I mean,
I
applying so
know.
many jobs and you didn't hear from like anyone, right? And checking your
Yeah,
email continuously, like, okay, maybe I get the reply or like something,
I
and not getting
know.
anything. So
Trust me,
yeah.
I'm in the same exact boat right now. And I don't know if you all do this. There's mixed, advice on it, but I am not the type of person that like keeps track of every single job I apply for and like marks declined, because then looking at that spreadsheet is like the most depressing thing. Like I just don't do that. I can't bring myself to do it. What I will do is if there are jobs that I'm really excited about and definitely want to make sure I follow up with, I will keep track of those, and I will make sure that I save my cover letter and resumes from that, because, especially if I'm particularly proud of the cover letter, I will make sure I save that version of my cover letter so that I can use it in the future. But yeah, no, I'm not the type of person that has a spreadsheet that's got like, I've applied for 600 jobs and been declined for 502 of them, and 40 of them never even responded to me. That is so depressing. So I don't do that. But, to each their own. If that doesn't discourage you and that doesn't make you feel badly, then go for it and stay organized. But that couldn't be me. Anyway.
Thank you, Ali.
Yeah, you're welcome. But yeah, just, I'm right here in the thick of it with you guys, and it's rough out there. If you haven't already been applying to stuff, um, yeah, Anna, I know I'm hoping that I don't get to that. I mean, I'll be able to get unemployment after code use done, but I'm hoping I don't get to that point where you actually have to keep track of it all, in order to get unemployment. But no, I would say it's ambitious, but I would say be applying to 5 to 10 jobs per week. Because, that's what I shoot for. And then some weeks it is 10 jobs and some weeks it's 3 jobs. So that's why I say shoot for 5 to 10, because it's rough out there, y'all. Like I said, I'm in the thick of it with you, but hopefully, now that we have these tools, it's definitely made my job search more efficient. So I feel like I never used to tailor resumes, and I definitely do now. So yeah, 1 per day is good too. It lands you right in the middle of that 5 to 10. For a while, I was like doing a bunch of job searching for myself at the same time. I was doing job searching for you all to like staff up the job board. And then saving jobs later for me to apply to, but I found that I wasn't coming back to them as soon as I should, and sometimes they would be expired. Anyway, you want to apply for a job as soon as you see it, to kind of be in the top stack of applicants there. So that's kind of been what I've done. I'm going to stop recording